Mr. Timmons, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Timmons. I'm a police lieutenant with the El Paso Community College Police Department. Prior to being with El Paso Community College Police Department, I spent 21 years with the El Paso Police Department for the city of El Paso, Texas. I worked in various functions throughout my 21-year career. Patrol officer. I was a detective for 8 years, and I also concluded my career as a police sergeant. For 4 of those years, I also worked as a crimes against children police detective, where we investigated physical and sexual abuse cases of children between the ages of infancy all the way up until 18 years of age.
Okay, now, Lieutenant Timmons, did you only work with children in sexual assault cases within families, or did you also take care of child sexual assault cases within the community? Lieutenant Timmons, can you please tell me what your main focus is when you receive a report of family sexual assault? And your experience with the 4 years as a detective
our main
in crimes against children,
or our first purpose,
did you see
is
more
to make
sexual
sure that the
assault
child or
cases
the victim is
within
safe.
the families
Once
due to
that's
family members,
accomplished,
or
our next step would be to gather
perpetrators that were
evidence
within the community and not family members?
to bring the alleged by perpetrator,
far,
there were more cases eventually to trial, and hopefully to make sure that they are dealt with through the court system.
Lieutenant Timmons, can you please tell me what your main focus is when you receive a report of family sexual assault involving a child? Please tell us how you ensure the safety of a child.
Our first purpose is to make sure that the child or the victim is the first thing we're going to do is try to determine whether or not a family member that resides within the evidence with the child is the one responsible for the alleged perpetrator. If that's the case, then Child Protective Services is called in, hopefully, and Child Protective Services will place the child in a more safe environment. If it's determined that a family member or that the parent is being protective of the child, then of course Child Protective Services will also make a determination whether or not the child can stay there inside the residence.
Please tell us how you assure the safety of a child that has made an outcry of family sexual assault.
Well, the first thing we're going to do is try to determine whether or not a family member that resides within the house with the child is the one responsible for the abuse of the child. If that's the case, then Child Protective Services is called in, and Child Protective Services will place the child in a more safe environment. If it's determined that a family member or that the parent is being protective of the child, then of course Child Protective Services will also make the determination whether or not the child can stay there inside the residence.
Please tell us how you assure the safety of a child that has made disturbing content, family sexual assault. At your discretion.
Well, the first thing we're going to do is try to determine whether or not a family member that
what legal action, if any, must be taken if another crime has been reported to you while working on the family's child sexual assault case?
Then Child Protective Services is called in, and police officers are legally bound to investigate all crimes that are reported to them. If it's one of the examples, and something that's quite common, a family member that are abused, that the parent is being protected physically and sexually abused, then of course the alleged perpetrator, Child Protective Services, usually has done it also make a determination. So once it's the child can stay found out through the initial investigation that the alleged perpetrator has committed these crimes or has done this in the past, those cases are also followed. Well, the first thing we're going to do is try to determine whether or not a family member that resides within the house with the child
what legal action, if any, must be taken if another crime has been reported to you while working on the crimes against children utilized within the community to prevent family sexual assault?
Police officers are legally bound to investigate all crimes if it's determined that one of the examples, a family member that's quite common, or that the parent is being protective of the child, then of course physically and sexually abused. Child Protective Services.
The purpose for that is to
use the community the child can stay there. So once these crimes do found out
Please tell us how you ensure the safety of a child,
and maybe give some pointers committed these crimes or has done this. Well, the first thing we're going to do is try to determine whether or not a family member that resides within the house with the child is the one responsible for the abuse of the child.
What legal action, if any,
If that's
must
the
be
case,
taken if
then
another
Child
mother
Protective
has
Services
been crimes
will
against
then
while working
give
on the
Child
family?
Protective Services
Child
to
Protective
put the
What are the
child in
most
a more
important
safe
differences
environment.
between
Generally,
family
police
If
therapy
it's
officers
legally
are
determined
legally
that
bound
a family member
or working with
one
children and
or that the
families?
parent is being
quite
protective
common.
of the child,
We have two
different
abused.
Child Protective Services,
And
very
the
important,
purpose
also
for
making
that
determination
is to
whether or
make the
not my alleged
community
perpetrator
therapist
usually
that
has done
these
it
crimes
before.
do occur.
Please tell us how you
Once
ensure the
in
safety of a child.
and maybe give some
official
guidance
investigation
family
of the
sexual
alleged
assault.
perpetrator has.
Well,
The first thing we're going to do is try to determine whether or not
and if not,
a family member that
cases
resides
are
within the
also
house
is paramount
is the one responsible for the abuse of
from
the
a
child.
criminal standpoint.
If that's the
From a law
case,
enforcement
then
What legal
standpoint, our
actions
job
must
is to
crimes
identify
against taken if another crime has been
Protective
reported
Services
while
will put the
working
child
on the
in a more
family?
safe
Child
environment.
sexual assault.
generally we
And
do
if it's
an
determined
thorough
that
police officers
that
are legally bound to law
a family member
enforcement being able to work
that the parent is being
one of the
protected
examples
to
of
hostage
this is quite common.
the Child Protective Services
And
will
the purpose
also
for
make a
that
determination
is
whether or
to
not
make the
the child
community
is
safe
sexual.
the alleged perpetrator.
Please tell us how you ensure the safety of a child. Do you
And
think
maybe
that
give
these
some pointers,
professions should be
found out
more
through
similar
the
to each
initial
other?
Well, the first thing
Or
we're
is
going
it
to
a
do
good
is
thing
try
that
to
they
determine
are
whether or not
so
a
different
family
and
member
they,
that resides within the house
utilize different
is the
methods
one responsible for the abuse of the
keep
child.
the community
If that's
safe?
the case, then
What
I think
community
it's good
methods
that
does crimes against children? What legal action, if any, must be taken if another crime has been reported to you while working on the family?
if it's
Child
determined
sexual assault.
that a
Thank you, Mr.
family
Lieutenant
member
police officers are legally bound to
or
public
that the
all
parent
crimes
is being
schools,
protective of the child,
to
then of course
hospital
one of the
personnel,
examples Child
something
Protective
that's quite
Services
common.
will
The
also
purpose
make a
for that
determination
is
whether or
to
not
make the
a child
community
needs to stay
aware
there children are
that
physically and
these
sexually
crimes
abused
do
Please tell